Welcome back to the High Value Man Conversation. This is episode 22, and this is a very special episode. Just had an interview with the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy. You guys have probably heard me talk about this book that I read about 8 years ago. It was absolutely pivotal in my personal development journey. The author, Dr. Robert Glover, is live on the episode, and we go deep. We go deep into spotting the nice guy syndrome, how to break free from your nice guy tendencies, and what life looks like as an integrated, wholehearted, high-value man. Without further ado, let's hop into the episode. All right, my friends, I've got Dr. Robert Glover here on this very special episode of the High Value Man Conversation. Dr. Glover is the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy and a few other amazing books in the men's personal development space. And I just had the privilege of spending some time with Dr. Glover and a handful of other men in a coaching certification down in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. We survived a hurricane. It was an eventful weekend, but I'm so grateful to be able to interview one of my mentors. Dr. Glover, welcome to the show.
Aaron, good to see you again. It was great to spend time with you. Yeah, under a hurricane warning here, and thanks for the invitation to your show.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. Just so any listeners that aren't familiar with your work, I'd love for you just to give me kind of an intro, who you are, how long you've been doing it, and what your mission is on this planet.
and then we're still gonna have time to talk, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm Robert, and probably most well known for my first book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. Came out about 20 years ago, and published a couple more books since: Dating Essentials for Men and Dating Essentials for Men, FAQ, Frequently Asked Questions, where I teach what I learned to do after my second divorce when I got out in the dating world in my late 40s and early 50s, and learned how to consciously date, which is not the way most dating coaches teach dating, but anyway, as another subject. And my background is my doctorate is in marriage and family therapy. I got that about 29 years old. Was in private practice for 25 plus years, doing a lot of marriage therapy, some family therapy. As I started recognizing myself as a nice guy about 30 years ago and working on that, I started noticing the same pattern in a lot of other men. So I started a No More Mr. Nice Guy men's group about 25 years ago, and just started writing chapters to give to these guys about what I was discovering and coming to understand about nice guy syndrome. And the guys and their partners often kept saying, Robert, you need to write a book. You need to go on Oprah. This could be a bestseller. And it was interesting when it did take about 6-7 years to write the book. I got an agent. We shopped it to publishing companies. A lot of the editors said, Robert, we like your book, but our marketing department says men won't buy a self-help book. And I said, you don't know these guys. That was, like I said, 20 plus years ago, and the royalty checks keep getting bigger every year. So men do buy self-help personal development books. And especially Amazon makes it so easy. You go looking for a book that, hear mentioned on a podcast. People who bought this book also bought this book.
Right.
And men get impulsive and just hit all of whether they read them
we're
all
fixers.
or not. Yeah.
We're fixers. We want to solve the problem.
We want the answers. We want the schematic. We want the diagram. We want to be told how to do it. And so men do buy self-help books. They do listen to podcasts. They do want to be good men.
Yes, I love that. There's so much there. First off, how do you spot the nice guy? Like, what are some of the symptoms of a nice guy? For those of us that are maybe don't know what that nice guy symptom and syndrome is, if you could dive a little bit deeper into that, 'cause it sounds like it came out of a need for you first and foremost.
Well, basically the way the kind of the elevator pitch of what a nice guy is. A nice guy is a man who doesn't believe he's okay just as he is. He tries to become what he thinks other people want him to be liked and loved and get his needs met. And he hides anything about him that he think might get a negative reaction from other people. And this roadmap, this paradigm, this survival mechanism always begins, pretty much always begins at a really early age. I mean, we're talking few days, few weeks, few months old. Anytime a child has an uncomfortable experience, they they're narcissistic by nature. They don't think about it. They just feel it. And they feel like they're the cause of it. And they do something different, that uncomfortable feeling will go away and maybe it won't happen again. So children suck their thumbs or cry or eat a lot or sleep a lot or become needless and wantless or smile a lot, whatever, to try to get to be loved and liked and get their needs met and hide anything that might get them punished or get them hurt. So nice guy syndrome is just one way that people learn to do that. There's lots of other ways we try to get our needs met and be liked and loved and avoid uncomfortable situations. But nice guy syndrome is that, as I said, believing I'm not okay as I am. The term for that is toxic shame. It's usually internalized as an emotional belief, not a thinking belief. We then go out and find contexts and situations to confirm that must be true. There must be something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. Women don't like me. I'm not smart enough. I'll never succeed. Or we even become hyper perfectionistic and try that we believe we have to be hyper successful to be loved and get our needs met. And so
they find situations, right, that confirm that bias they have about themselves, that is the toxic shame.
And it's called confirmation bias. Is that, confirmation bias, the way it works is it doesn't matter if this is a political or religious or personal confirmation bias. We always see information that supports what we believe to be true. Even like, if you decide you're going to buy a certain car, all of a sudden you notice those cars everywhere.
Right.
You go, oh, it must be a good car. And it also tends, confirmation bias rules out anything that might contradict our emotionally held inner belief system. And what I stress so much when I talk about the nice guy paradigm, it began early on as inaccurately internalized emotional beliefs, not thoughts, not pictures, but just emotional beliefs that gets wired into our nervous system. It becomes our machine language that dictates how we see ourselves and see the world and how we interact with the world around us. So again, we experience this as a child. We internalize this belief system. In adolescence, when we're trying to get noticed by the opposite sex, trying to find our identity, it gets solidified. We come into young adult believing these things about ourselves. Well, I'm not good enough. I better try really hard to be a good guy so people will like me and love me. I better avoid conflict. I better be generous. I better not be too opinionated. I better not be too offensive. And I better hide my wants and needs, and especially my sexuality, because people might respond negatively to that. Yeah. And then we live our lives, when that doesn't work well, we just double down and try harder, keep doing more of the same of that.
Right. And then it ends up with frustration, irritation, this feeling of not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy, not getting your needs met makes it impossible for anyone to do for you, which creates a whole lot of conflict in your romantic relationships, where you tend to notice the nice guy syndrome.
If we believe we're having need, if we believe we're bad for having needs, or that people will be upset at us for having needs, sure, we hide them. Yeah. And then you ask, how can we recognize the nice guy? So let me throw out something closely related to that. And that is something you're familiar with, is covert contracts. And this is a core piece of the book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. A lot of people tell me that really was a big takeaway for them. And I've refined that even further since writing the book. But basically, nice guys and nice girls tend to use three core fundamental contracts to negotiate the world. First one is that if I'm good, I'll be liked and loved and get my needs met. And again, we're the ones who define this good. And as I write about No More Mr. Nice Guy, I identify two types of nice guys. One is the I'm so good nice guy. And that was me, where my shame is so pressed down and compartmentalized, I'm not even aware of it. I said, I'm a good guy. I treat people well. I don't tell lies. I don't cheat and steal, blah, 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 blah. And so therefore people should like me and love me. And they should want to help me meet my needs. The other type of nice guy identifies the I'm so bad nice guy. And this is the guy, and maybe from a little bit of what you've told me of your story, maybe you can relate to, early on getting in trouble, maybe turn into alcohol or pot at an early age, struggling in school, maybe have ADD, can't pay attention, maybe harshly punished or abused by adults. And so you internalize, I'm so bad. And often for the I'm so bad nice guy, at some point they have a turnaround. get married, have a kid, find Jesus, near-death experience, whatever, and they think, I got to become a good guy. But
swing the pendulum
unfortunately,
too far.
so that toxic shame is still right just below the surface. Say, I'll try to be a good guy because that's the only way I'm going to be liked and loved and get my needs met. But it's only a matter of time till people find out, I'm not such a nice guy.
Sure.
So that's covert contract number one, is that if you're trying to be good, so people will like you and love you, that's probably a sign you might have nice guy syndrome. Covert contract number two, and all of these, by the way, are all if-then propositions. And as I said, they're covert. So often the nice guy isn't even consciously aware they're doing them.
Right.
And nobody else knows about the contract, right? Whether it's with God, the world, with women, our boss, guy friends, whatever. So covert contract number two. If I meet everybody else's needs without them having to ask, then they will meet my needs without me having to ask. Now, usually what that means is if, as we caretake and be codependent with other people, we want them to appreciate us and like us and maybe want to have sex with us and give back to us in the ways we give to them. Now, all the covert contracts are highly ineffective for numerous reasons, but this one especially. Mind reading other people and caretaking them is not really a good way to get your own needs met.
Sure.
Nobody else knows that contract exists. They can't read our mind. They don't know what we want. And to top it off, nice guys are typically really bad receivers. I've been told by every woman in my life, Robert, you're hard to give to. So I had to take that seriously. I thought, okay, I have to learn to give to me, and I have to learn to surround myself with people who want to give to me. I have to let people know what I would like them to give to me, and I have to practice receiving what they want to give. But because we're terrible receivers by nature, we tend not to get our needs met, which leads to that sign on your wall that we're going to come back to in just a minute, the passive aggressive man.
Yeah.
And then the third covert contract is if I do everything right, then I will have a smooth, problem-free life. Now, this is pretty Peter Pan-ish because nobody ever does everything right.
Yeah, but that's a whole nother area to dive into, the Peter Pan syndrome that so many men run into, where they live in this idea of never land, that things are supposed to be a certain way, but
yeah, like things should always go well. Nothing should ever go wrong.
Right.
Nobody should ever get mad at me. I shouldn't ever be embarrassed. I should blah, blah. Kind of like, when you're at my house, hurricanes shouldn't come over Puerto Vallarta, when I'm doing a workshop.
Yeah.
The restaurant shouldn't close down at 7 o'clock.
Right.
Well, there's not, I remember her. So let me let her out for you.
No worries.
Right back.
Yeah.
I think Lupita must have just gotten home, so Nala's going to greet her.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So that the covert contract number three is, we think everything should always be because I do everything right. And we're the scorekeeper. So, and which is interesting because, every great book, whether it be the Old Testament, New Testament, Quran, all say nobody ever gets this right. Nobody's perfect. Right. We all fall short. And so, but the nice guy has that illusion. If I do everything right, or at least hide anything that might, not be right.
Yeah.
And then one of the ways you may know you're in covert contracts is you tend to feel resentful, maybe even rageful, which makes nice guys uncomfortable. So we tend to repress that and keep it in, but then it comes out as passive aggressiveness, indirect anger, avoidance, gossip, put downs, biting humor, being late, forgetting. And then really when it gets really nasty, it comes out in the victim pukes, which my second wife named that term, where everything you've been rehearsing in your head for the last 6 months, because they're not giving back to you like you think, and they're not liking you like you want to be liked. And they're having bad days and bad moods. And wait a minute, you're supposed to always be in a good, all of a sudden it comes puking out of us, everything. And it's not pretty. Everything, every little thing we've rehearsed over and over and over again that we want to say, and then blah. So unfortunately, nice guys often are not all that nice because of the passive aggressiveness and the victim pukes, which are the direct result of the covert contracts.
Man, I love that. It's such a clear roadmap of the making of a nice guy and the symptoms that you might spot if you're in that. And I can relate to all three. I ran through all three. I'm still in active nice guy recovery, and it shows up the most in your dynamic of your romantic relationship. And I get triggered. I triggered myself because I'm like, oh my God, I'm in it again. I found myself in it this morning in the not asking specifically for help, not asking for help. That's one of those areas like, I'm just going to do all this and assume that my behavior of the doing is going to stimulate a response of other people doing. And then it creates the frustration in me.
Good plan.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm just going to lead by action, by action, take initiative and do the doing and just assume that everyone's going to pick up on the mental vibe that I'm putting out and also do. But then it creates irritation, frustration, and the little vomit, the vomit of like, well, you should have seen, you should have known. And then you find myself very quickly back in it. And it is a subversive sickness and syndrome because it's there and it's hardwired, like you said, into your machine language.
And that's exactly right. Because like I started working on this stuff, I'm pretty sure close to 30 years ago when my then second wife said, everybody thinks you're such a nice guy, and you treat me well, but then like when I'm not expecting it, you embarrass me or you cut me down or you make a joke that hurts my feelings or you have a victim puke. And she said, you need help. You need to go get therapy. She said, because you're not such a nice guy. And I thought, well, okay, you're the one that's like unhappy all the time, never wants to have sex anymore, always in a bad mood, always complaining, always attacking me. Okay, I'll go to therapy and to find out why me being a nice guy doesn't, make you appreciate me more. And luckily, I landed in some good places and, started, getting in touch with toxic shame and releasing that with safe people, started learning about boundaries, started learning about making my needs a priority, started learning about being honest and transparent, started learning about connecting with men, started paying attention to my covert contracts. And now 30 years later, this stuff still pops up.
Yep.
It still pops up. But as you, I'm sure, are discovering, you notice it quicker. You catch on to it, you get to be the witness of it, and then you can smile at it. Maybe we'll get a little pissy at ourselves, but then go, okay. But the issue is that I think people used to ask me, Robert, can people recover from nice guy syndrome? And I'd always say, I'll let you know, and because I'm on that journey, and I think the recovery is just learning to be the witness, learning to release the toxic shame, learning to be vulnerable with safe people, learning to consciously make our needs a priority and surround ourselves with people who want to help us meet our needs. And we're still going to go unconscious. We're still going to slip into old patterns because it is so deeply wired into our emotional operating system and a very primitive part of our brain. But the good news is we can be conscious. And I think nice guy syndrome is, kind of like alcoholism or an addiction. It's kind of the big stick that wakes you up and brings you into consciousness. And, an alcoholic might not ever lose their cravings for alcohol. And a nice guy, might always watch his anxiety responses pop up in, pretty predictable situations. And we can watch it, smile at it, ground ourselves, soothe ourselves, use whatever tools we've developed to just be with it rather than let it take us over. So we have a response rather than a reaction. And that feels very different.
Yeah, I love that. There's a piece in the book that I remember reading, and most of my listeners know this, but I read your book and another book about 8 years ago. It was at the precipice of my personal development journey. I was not in a relationship I wanted to be in. I was in a sexless relationship. I was overweight. I was constantly feeling resentful, judgmental, critical, angry. And the universe gave me your book and another book. And both those were eye-opening. And I realized that either you had started to stalk me and read my mail, or there was something that I could pinpoint and follow a blueprint for. And, as men, we love having blueprints.
We do.
Yeah. And so I remember reading that blueprint, but there was a piece in the book that really spoke to me. And it was about this generational issue where the manufacturing of a nice guy has really been because so many young men are raised by women, taught to, grow to the standards of what women want, to please women, put women on a pedestal, because we're taught by women. Largely education is 80% women. A lot of men are passive by nature in their parental upbringing. We see more divorce ever than ever, and there's less men learning in the fields, learning by spending time with other men. And so one of your tools, I know, is men getting in proximity to other men.
Right.
If we don't break, and I think, we can see the effect of men not leading at home first. We see that young boys now have to figure it out on their own, just like I did, and sounds like just like you did, which creates a whole lot of internal issues. What can dads do if they experience some of these nice guy symptoms? And
what can they do to help their kids?
Yeah.
Okay. That's such a good question, because I'll be 67 in a month. So I'm tail end baby boomer.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the generation X after me, and then millennials. And then I lose track of the letters after that.
Yeah.
And, when I started working with nice guys 25 plus years ago, a lot of the men were around my age, maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger. And most of the men identified their childhood. At first, I thought maybe we all had pretty similar childhoods, but there's a lot of different dynamics. But a common core piece is not feeling connected to a healthy, safe male role model, whether that's father, stepfather. And so not feeling real connected with men, and maybe even trying to be different from father in some significant way. Maybe dad was absent, alcoholic, working all the time, divorced. And often a lot of boys grew up hearing their mothers talking badly about their fathers, complaining about. I did. I mean, that was my job in my household, was listen to my mother complain about my father. So a lot of men I worked with kind of reported that estrangement from father. And then as I've continued to do work with nice guys, and I do get to now the millennials and the generations below them, men in their 30s and 20s. And now a lot of the guys are saying either they did grow up in single parent homes, as you say, divorce, over half of marriages end in divorce. And so that affects a lot of children. But now a lot of men I talk to, they're younger, say their father was a nice guy. Because like, for example, I've got a 37-year-old son, and he could honestly say, yeah, my dad was a nice guy. I wrote the book while he was an adolescent. So I was learning, to not be a nice guy while my son was growing up through adolescence. And published the book, about the year he graduated from high school. So what a lot of guys tell me, the younger men tell me, and I was probably the same way. Well, all they learned from their fathers was, don't piss off your mother. That was training for masculinity. Don't piss off your mother, because that's what dad was trying to do, not piss off the mother.
Right.
And what's interesting, is I work exclusively with men now, and you work primarily with men. And, kind of almost a golden rule of maleness nowadays is don't piss off the woman. Don't make a woman mad on social media. Don't make a woman mad at work. I mean, this isn't just about our girlfriend or wife. It's like, we can't piss off any woman because their reaction, might harm us. So guys are walking around on eggshells, afraid of doing anything wrong. I'm going to end up a hashtag Me Too casualty, or I'll get flamed or canceled or attacked, and you might. But so we're all walking around trying not to piss off a woman. So going back to what can we do as men, as fathers, there's a lot of things we can do. But one of the things we can do, of course, is work on the relationship we have with our children's mother. Even if we're not married to her, even if we're no longer with her, I think the healthier relationship we have, the more boundaried and the more loving relationship we have with the mother of our children, that's going to benefit our children. I remember one time, my stepson his mother, my second wife, was going off on me about something. I think I had left my shoes where she wanted them. She wanted them left right by the front door. I don't know. And so she was kind of hollering at me, and my stepson was probably all of about 14, says, "Pops, you gonna let her treat you like that?" And I thought, oh man, I got to role model something better to my son. He's calling me out. And then even, like I said, with my son and stepson, I've been realized it took me several years to write No More Mr. Nice Guy. I thought, I got to finish this book so that my sons can see their father follow through. And so The relationship we have with the mother of our children is key. Us living with purpose and passion and following through on our mission is key. Another thing that I did with my son and stepson is whenever I could, I brought them around other men. Whether it's me playing softball with other men, going camping with other men, going to ball games with other men, I'd bring my boys around that so they could see their dad interacting with men. Because as you alluded to, if we go back just 100 years ago when society was more agrarian, boys grew up around their father and grandfather and uncles and cousins, working in the field or working, in an apprenticeship. They were around men. They were learning from men. And now there's just a dearth of that experience of boys being around men. So get your boys around men. And by the way, all these same things, they apply if you have daughters as well.
Sure.
What you want your daughter to see is what a conscious, open-hearted, powerful man looks like, because that's what you want them to be attracted to.
Right.
As they get older. And so if they see you being strong with their mother and you having good polarity and you pursuing your passion and you being loving and generous and open-hearted, that's what they will find attractive and be attracted to, which is that's a nice gift you can give your daughter, that they're attracted to a conscious, passionate, purposeful man.
Best gift, absolutely.
Best gift. So, really, I think bottom line, do your recovery and let your children see you doing your recovery. That doesn't mean you necessarily have to take them to 12-step meetings or to your men's group, but do with them, what you're doing in your own personal recovery. Be honest, be transparent, let them see you have boundaries, let them see you communicate your wants and needs, let them see you connect with men, let them see you have boundaries with their mother, let them see you open-heartedly love their mother. Those are all powerful things we can do. And really, most of the teaching we do our sons is not through a lot of verbal admonition.
I had another teacher share this with me. The best lessons are caught, not taught. We learn the best lessons through the subtle behaviors of someone else. We catch the lesson just by being in proximity.
Right.
And by teaching lessons, they go in one ear, not the other. How many times have you heard all things you need to hear until you actually catch the lesson? When you catch it, then it gets ingrained in your biology.
Yeah. And here's another way that I think really men can do this thing of letting your children catch. My training and background is, as I said, in marriage and family therapy. So I had a lot of child development courses back in the day. And I've looked at, what was important for child development. What do little boys and little girls most need, but especially little boys, because I mainly work with men. And so when I was working with mothers in family therapy, I would often tell them that once their boy reached about 2, all he really needed from mom was to be a lap. He needed to be able to wander away, go have adventures, fall down, get hurt, and come back, and mom would be there and could comfort him and soothe him and, get him back on his feet and let him go again. And not to the two worst things that can happen to a little boy is he wanders away and he comes back and mom's not there and doesn't know where to find her. Or
smothers him, doesn't let him go.
Or comes back and mom wraps him. Oh, you can't go out. You're going to get hurt again. Stay. And so he either gets smothered or abandoned. So I would tell moms, I said, doesn't matter if he's 2, 7, 14, 18. He really just needs you to be a lap. Now, how that practically gets played out is in a lot of families, the mother's the primary disciplinarian now, even through adolescence. And so what I did, my son and my stepson were about 6 months apart. My son was from my first marriage. My second marriage, that's where my stepson was from. And so my son lived with his mother most time, but we lived close, so I had him on weekends. And so with, for example, my stepson, we reached a point where he and my then wife, were battling as he started differentiating and she was being controlling and overreactive. And so probably when he was about 12 or so, I said to her, okay, you're done. You are done disciplining your son. I said, that's my job for now on. I said, well, he talks back to me and he does this and he does that. And I said, okay, come let me know about it. I will take care of it. So I took over all the discipline and told her, just be his mother, to just love him. If he gets out of line, he's got to deal with me. And I had a good relationship with him. And so, he'd like him and his mom would be going at it. And his mother couldn't be the one to draw a healthy line.
Sure.
She had to go deeper and deeper and deeper. It's kind of the feminine thing. Just you couldn't leave it alone. So I'd go interrupt. I'd tell my then wife, all right, you go up to your room, go take a break. I'm going to go talk to him. And we'd go have a little talk, take him out to the woodshed. And again, I said, all right, what's the issue? Well, mom's being this way. I know your mother can be that way. And here's how I expect you to handle it.
Yeah.
And if you can't handle it, come talk to me. I'll help you work out handling it. But we don't, you don't talk back to her. You're not disrespectful. Come deal with me. And I said, and if you can't do it that way, there's going to be consequences. You get it? And he goes, yeah, okay. Can I pull the car out of the driveway now? I go, okay, let's go. And with my son, when he was about a junior in high school, his mother, who didn't talk to me much after we divorced, started calling me, said, oh, I can't handle it. He's being rebellious. He's being that. So I'd kind of, be there and let her talk through it. And then she goes, if I can't handle him, can he come live with you? Now, she couldn't see me. I'm on the phone, but I'm doing a happy dance, Yeah. I wanted that, forever. So I said, okay, you step out. I'll take over. Let me be the parent. Let me do the mentoring, the fathering. So that's a really powerful thing. When the child and the mother reach that stage that they're starting to have like these verbal battles, or mom's overreacting, or too involved, or smothering, or too controlling, or tiger mom, or helicopter mom, or whatever, or unavailable mom because like she's working all the time, whatever.
Sure, yeah.
That's where father steps in, with boys especially, but also with the daughter. I don't think he can play quite the same role with the daughter, because I think the daughter really needs the bond with her mother. It's different than what the little boy needs. But the father helps the boy differentiate from mom and initiates him into the scary, demanding world of the masculine.
Right.
But that takes
the tribe of men.
The tribe of men, but that takes time, and it takes consciousness. And again, I've recommended that to many couples in the past I was working with. I'd say, okay, mom, it's time for you to step out, to quit disciplining, especially.
Yeah.
Just be a loving lap. Dad, it's your job now. It's on you. How are you going to create structure and discipline and consequences and learning for your son?
Right. And from a tribal standpoint, that is how it was done for millions of years for us young boys as men. We had that rite of passage where we'd reach the age of maturity. We were pulled from the tribe, pulled from the grips of mother, and sent off into the tribe and sent off into the woods to go survive and thrive on our own. And it is from the mother's womb that we go and we step into the real world of masculinity. And I think with my experience, I was raised primarily by a single mom. I had three fairly abusive father figures at different points in life that did not provide the discipline, nor did they provide the modeling that I needed. But mom had to be disciplinarian. Mom had to be also the lap of comfort. And mom also had to be the friend. And there's a lot of dynamic there that is, can be another call to unpack. Yeah. But at the end of the day, what I needed the most was that masculine presence and that masculine discipline to initiate me into being a man.
Yeah, you needed loving structure, because children, boys and girls, are all feminine in nature. We're the flow. We're the thing that is just impulsive and not nailed down. And as you said, the initiated, masterful men of the tribe always took the boys and taught them. And I think, to me, the core piece of initiation, and you do initiation work, so I'd like to hear your thought on it. But for me, the primary aspect of male initiation is learning to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
And whether that's facing fears, physical fears, emotional fears, being challenged out of our comfort zone, and if you look at pretty much every tribal ritual of initiation, whether it's tying a boy down to the fire anthill overnight, or the American Indian kind of putting the hook through the skin of his chest and tying that to a pole, and he had to lean back all night. Or I remember seeing a National Geographic show when I was just a kid of in the jungle, where the boys they'd tie a vine around their ankle and they jump out of a tree. That was before bungee jumping, and I don't think those vines stretched like bungee cords. And so it was scary to do, and it hurt when you did it. And you learn, you can handle it. The movie 300, There's a scene in there where the boy's out in the cave at night with just his spear to deal with, a fierce predator.
Right.
And the men were always close by.
Right.
They didn't just leave him alone. They were there to look after him, protect him, and help him successfully pass through that initiation. And then once they did that, they were considered full-fledged men in the tribe.
Yeah. And it's such a powerful process. We do it with our father and son program, the Squire program. And you said it eloquently. The initiation of a young boy to manhood is being able to sit in discomfort and be unwavering. And I think that is ultimately our ultimate masculine call in everything that we do, is that life is hard. It never ends. This is David Dita stuff. It never ends. It just keeps going until it stops going. And as soon as we stop trying to resist it and fight against it is when we really step into our power as the man and be able to be unwavering inside of chaos. And all of life is that. And the initiation process, it looks different, across different tribes, but all comes down to a physical embodiment of discomfort and being able to stay unchanged by it.
And stay grounded. And I was talking on a call one time with one of my certified coaches, the same like you. I was talking about masculine, feminine polarity, and he just used the phrase, which really it stuck with me, that really sums this up: a masculine frame, feminine flow. So that initiation teaches us to be that masculine container, that unwavering source of strength, the frame, the leader, the guide, the ascertainer, so that the feminine of life, everything is not nailed down as feminine. Women, dogs, cats, babies, money, opportunity, adventure, is all feminine and is always flowing. And that's usually what knocks us men off. The hurricane came, about 2 weeks before he came to my house, we had a 7.7 earthquake, that happened. And our woman gets upset, or our woman leaves us, or, whatever, our boss, calls us out, or, we get embarrassed, whatever. The feminine is always, now the feminine it isn't good or bad. It just is. So this flow could be money, but a lot of times money flows to us and we don't handle it very well because we don't have a good frame. Opportunity comes to us when we don't take advantage of it, or we miss the opportunity because we don't already have that masculine frame for it. So the masculine frame that comes through initiation, from learning to be grounded, to soothe ourselves, to mentally accept, I can handle this. No matter what happens, I'll handle it. And until the end, we stay firm, we stay strong. Now, we're all human. We all slip. We all crumble at times. But that's where we need our brothers. We need our tribe men to say, okay, we're here for you. Let's pick it back up. You can do it. And I know, again, you describe me the things you do with men in your training. And to do all of that alone would probably be completely overwhelming to the majority of men. But you do it with a tribe of men, with leaders, with support. It's amazing what we can do when we have the support of other men. We can be that masculine frame and hold firm in the storm, in the tidal wave, in the tsunami, in the earthquake, in the woman raging at us, telling us we're a worthless piece of shit. We can stay firm. We can be strong. But it takes training, initiation, and tribe to do it.
Love that. Yeah, that's so true. So true. So we kind of jumped all over the place on that front.
I always have that tendency.
I love it. I love it. It was awesome to see you in your state of flow as well when we were there for the workshop, and just to see how much content you've covered over the years. When with the root of the problem being the nice guy syndrome that was taught to us, that we caught these lessons of hiding our authenticity, but the blossoming, the conscious man, the integrated man, the wholehearted man, the high value man, the guy that lives, once he is solved through this trauma, he gets to live life really on his own terms, which I think is ultimately the foundation for what you want to guide guys through with the No More Nice Guy book, through your coaching, through your teaching.
Definitely.
It's, living wholeheartedly, a life of purpose, of passion, of play, of understanding polarity. I'd love to spend a few minutes talking about, what it looks like when you live as an integrated man, a wholehearted man, from your perspective, because I think this is where every nice guy wants to get to.
And that's such a good question, because we nice guys, we men are pretty black and white. It's either this or that, right? So guys will read my book or hear a podcast or listen to an interview, and they'll say, all right, Dr. Glover, I get that being a nice guy, being passive and avoidant and pleasing, that's not serving me well. But I don't want to go be the asshole jerk. I don't want to be, this bad man either. I need to find that balance. And I always smile at that. And nice guys always are seeking balance. And I usually tell nice guys, I don't know any successful person that's particularly in balance. To really get shit done in this world and really live our purpose. Yeah. It means getting out of balance at times. Maybe not all the time, but yeah, you got to be willing to get out of balance. But here's what I tell nice guys. Okay, I don't want to be a nice guy. I don't want to be the wussy doormat, but I don't want to be the asshole jerk either. So I got to find a middle ground. And I'll say, I don't know where the tipping point is between two dysfunctional extremes. I think both the nice guy and, the jerk are both on the same level, same plane. They are both trying to manage their anxiety and toxic shame. They're both in a fight, flee mechanism. The nice guy's just mostly in flee and freeze. And the jerk is mostly in fight. And so one is just more aggressively trying to manipulate the situation and the people around him. The nice guy is more subtly and indirectly trying to manipulate the people and situations around him. So finding something in between that doesn't work. So we have to come up to another plane. We have to bring it up to another level. And again, it doesn't matter if we call it integrated man, conscious man, authentic man, high value man. This is another plane. It's not just doing a little bit less or a little bit more of the stuff down here. And I think there are several components to becoming that integrated man as I describe it. I think one of the first is learning to soothe ourselves, because I think nice guy syndrome is primarily anxiety-based and shame-based in nature. So we have to learn to soothe our anxiety if we're going to live differently and respond differently. We have to learn to release our shame. We have to have safe people that we can begin revealing ourselves to and get more accurate feedback as to who we really are. So as we release shame, we can be more visible, more transparent, more authentic. We don't have to hide anything. I think we have to get connected with men. And most nice guys are not particularly connected with men. We have to get more differentiated where we can be able to ask ourselves, what do I want? What's important to me? What feels right? And then follow through and do that, even when there's resistance from outside of you or resistance between your own ears. We have to be more conscious, just more aware, more in the moment, more paying attention. There's several pieces to this, and I usually list about 4, 5, 6 pillars of being this integrated man. But what
is the difference between? Because I think one starting point. I think most guys in recovery that are working through whatever their dysfunction is, their neurosis is, we're very familiar with what anxiety is. For the most part. And you talk about two big key differentiators, one being manage versus soothe. And so the continuum of kind of crazy is the nice guy jerk versus the uber nice guy. He's still in the continuum of managing his anxiety. Yes. Right? Versus soothing the anxiety. This is equipping yourself with tools and having a way to actually decompress and heal the anxiety at the root cause. And so what would be kind of if you could give a couple tools for soothing your anxiety versus managing?
Good question. Yeah, because when I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy, I pretty much was honed in on the shame aspects of the nice guy syndrome, the trying to become what we think other people want us to be, trying to hide what we think is going to get a rejection. That's all out of toxic shame. By the time the book was actually published, because it took about 6, 7 years to write, 3 years to get a publisher for it, I'd really begun paying attention to the anxiety in nice guy syndrome. And so I was beginning to teach that in my groups and working with men. And it was interesting that almost weekly in these groups I was leading, guys would say, can we talk about self-soothing again? Can we talk about soothing anxiety again? So I really came to realize that anxiety is every bit a significant foundation of nice guy syndrome as shame is. So for me, again, being an integrated male means I can soothe myself and take action on things that scare me,
Mm.
rather than trying to manage the people and situations that are causing my fear, so I don't have to feel afraid. So we're gonna take action even when we're anxious or afraid, and you can only do that through self-soothing. Now, my basic self-soothing tools that I've been practicing for 30 plus years. One of them, I'll just start with what I think is essential in every situation, and that's breath.
Mm.
We have to breathe. We have to learn how to breathe.
Mhm.
Before we got on the call today, I just did a sitting meditation for a little bit, and then I did 3 rounds of Wim Hof breathing. And I practice all kinds of different breath. Diaphragmatic breathing is essential. We just kind of breathe into your belly nice and deep and slow. Because what happens when we're anxious or stressed, we hunch over, our chest closes off, our breathing gets shallow, it becomes chest breath. And that actually imbalances the oxygen and CO2 in our blood, which makes us more anxious.
Mhm.
So one of the best tools is to, I tell you, put your hands behind your back. And just putting your hands behind your back pulls your shoulders back.
Mhm.
It opens your chest up. Now practice breathing like you're breathing up through your asshole, and just kind of breathe up into your diaphragm. And then another piece that really this has come more of late in the work that I do with my coach, John Wineland, is the grounding part of this as well. So now I'm sitting here talking to you barefoot with both feet flat on the tile floor under my desk. And I'm barefoot a lot of the time. And so when I'm sitting here doing interviews, talking to clients, I'm always sitting straight. Both feet are on the ground, feeling grounded, feeling the energy of the earth. And so grounding to our feet, our lower body, breathing up into our diaphragm, opening up chest, shoulders, it relaxes the nervous system.
Mhm.
And there's so many things you can do better. Like, if I'm on an interview, there's always a time I'll notice myself sometimes during an interview going a little bit unconscious and hunching over and kind of getting tight. And then, it's probably almost imperceptible to people watching, but if you watch every now and then, you can see I kind of open up and reset and just kind of get back into breath. That just levels out our nervous system and lets us do whatever's in front of us. We're more conscious. We think more rationally and wiser. So breath is essential. Another one of my core self-soothing tools comes from a book that I read when I was going through my first divorce over 35 years ago, a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. One of my all-time favorite books. I've recommended it, thousands and thousands of times. And basically, Susan Jeffers, the author of that, breaks fear down to 3 levels. One is things that just happen to us. You catch a cold or you stub your toe. The other is what she called ego fears, where it relates to me as a person. I get rejected, or I get shamed, or I get yelled at, or I lose a job. She said the third level is beneath both of those. And she said that is just a core belief that I can't handle it. She says the core of all fear is a belief I cannot handle it. And so it doesn't matter. I can't handle getting rejected. I can't handle getting sick. I can't handle, being in debt. I can't handle, somebody being mad at me, whatever. And so for me, I remember going through that first divorce. I had a lot of shame about it. I was broke. My 2-year-old son, I wasn't with me every day like he was before we split. I changed careers. I was a mess. I would go to sleep at night just consumed with anxiety. And I was reading this book, and so I'd go to sleep every night telling myself, I'll handle it. No matter what happens, I'll handle it. I had no friggin' clue how I was going to handle the midst of what I was in, but I'd fall asleep, telling myself, I'll handle it. Get up the next day, telling myself, I'll handle it one day at a time. So I still use that mantra in situations where I'm anxious. I've done some interviews with some pretty big name people along. My second ever TV interview was with Bill O'Reilly. I didn't even know who Bill O'Reilly was. I had to go look him up. That was, again, 20 something years ago. I've interviewed with Dick Clark when he was still alive. Geraldo. I've done some big name interviews. And I tell you what, I didn't know how I was going to handle it. I just would breathe and tell myself, I'll handle it. I'll handle it. I've done this before. I can do it again. I'll handle it. So That's a powerful way to soothe. And usually talking with somebody you know well, who you trust, can help you get through things too. Because usually when we're anxious or stressed or afraid, we keep it all inside our head. It's like an echo chamber. We just keep running through the same thing, ruminate about it. We magnify the fear, the what ifs, the I don't knows. Talk to somebody, sit down and just, get on Zoom, get on the phone, talk to a good buddy, say, hey, I'm scared. I'm stressing about this. And so that is really helpful. Another thing that I do is I try to get playful with it. My coach says, make art of it. So for example, one of my biggest triggers, is in relationship. So, my wife gets that look on her face, or she withdraws, or, I can tell she's mad at me at something, I feel the anxiety. It's in my nervous system. I'm thinking, why am I afraid of this short little Mexican woman? But it's kind of like, she'll just get that look, and I feel like I'm going to die.
Right.
Man, I got to fix this right now.
Right.
So I've learned to just kind of smile and laugh and play with it a little bit. And, sometimes I'll even sing myself a silly song. I'm in trouble. I'm in such big trouble. That short little Mexican woman's mad at me. I'm in trouble. I get playful with it. Break out of that thing.
Change your state.
Change the state. That's such a great way to put it. Change the state. And these are the basics, whether you're on a battlefield, whether you're talking to a woman for the first time, whether you're facing some other physical fear, asking for a raise, doesn't matter. The self-soothing is all the same. You got to ground, you got to breathe, remind yourself you can handle it, try to, have some fun with it, get playful with it, talk to somebody, have a brother with you. All of these things make any kind of challenge much easier.
I love that. I love that. So the integrated man, the wholehearted man, the man on path, on purpose, he knows he has things he has to do and gets to do, but he has to manage his anxiety, not simply by managing it, by soothing it. And the soothing it tools means he's going to face the fear and do it anyway. He's going to step into the lion's den, and he has these tools like breathing, tools like positive self-talk, recognizing that it is just a biological response coming up in the body, and you can sing through it, play through it, dance through it, and treat it like it is just a primal part that doesn't have to take control. Because I think the biggest thing that stops so many men, passive aggressive men, the nice guy, is that anxiety builds into such a big monster, and it just becomes this overwhelming dragon that they can't slay. And that's when they go into all kinds of other vices, and it goes into even more lack of self-trust, lack of self-confidence, lack of self-respect, and they repeat that same pattern over and over again. And you said something over the weekend when I was out there. It's not self-sabotaging, because that's a term that I think I got used to using is, I'd self-sabotage. This anxiety would build up, and then I would self-sabotage whatever's good right in front of me. But it's actually, it's serving a purpose. It's a capacity when you don't follow through with something.
Well, I tell people I'm not a big fan or a believer in the idea of self-sabotage. I actually think, we're all pretty intelligent creatures, and we don't self-sabotage. We do, though, act consistently with our deepest held beliefs about ourselves and the world. And, when it comes to facing fear, I'll do a practice with people where, and I don't know if we did this at your particular workshop, we might have, because I often do this. I'll say, okay, let's go around the room. Well, what's everything that can go wrong if you actually walk up and talk to a pretty woman? And, guys can quickly come up with 20 things.
Right.
You might get rejected. You might look foolish. You might get a drink thrown in your face.
What if she says yes?
What if she says yes and becomes your girlfriend? You find out she's a bitch and you can't get away. Or what if she, ruins your reputation, or you marry her and you have kids with her, and then she divorces your ass and takes your kids and your money. All of that could go wrong. From just talking to a woman. Or I say, what's everything that go wrong if you put a penis in a vagina? And again, guys can come up with 20 or more things. I might not be able to get hard. I might come too quickly. I might not be able to come at all. She might not come. She might criticize me. She might get pregnant. I might get an STD. And again, so I tell people working on our fears, let's actually look at what are the real possibilities of our fears, because those things all can happen. You know, what might happen to me if I launch my own coaching program, if I launch my own men's program, if I launch my own podcast, what are all the things that might happen? Write them down, look at them, and if there is a possibility those painful things happen, there's actually a logic in not doing the things that would lead to that.
Sure.
So there's actually a logic in not talking to a pretty woman. There's a logic in not putting your penis in a vagina. There's a logic in not launching your own coaching program and podcast.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing then, once you write down what you're afraid of, you can act, and then that's usually then when we back away and don't follow through, and we call it self-sabotage. But I'm not sure it's self-sabotage. It might actually be rational behavior.
Right.
That if all these bad things could happen to you, why would you go do them, risking these bad things happening? But you can back away then from your list and look at all the things your unconscious knows could possibly go wrong. Some are maybe completely, made up, but some are very possibly very real. And so then ask yourself some questions. If this did happen, could I handle it? If this happened, could I learn some new skill sets? If this happened, could I bring in some new resources? If this happened, could I find a way to work with it by either getting a coach, watching some YouTube videos, getting a mentor, joining a men's group, self-soothing, learning how to set boundaries, being a good ender, asking for what I want, setting the tone. Are all these things I could learn and adapt and bring in to deal with whatever might happen, and then take the chance of doing this and the chance of reaping the upside of talking to the pretty woman, of putting my penis in a vagina, launching my coaching program. And if we know we can, and share this, by the way, with your tribe, share this information with your brothers. Because again, trying to face fears alone, again, even the little boys didn't have to go out and be put on that anthill or jump out of that tree with a, vine around their ankle or slay, some predator by themselves. The men were there with them. They, they had to do certain things themselves, but they weren't alone.
Yes, they were stretching. They weren't stressed. I love your diagram of stepping outside of yourself, stretching and building the strength in the muscles and doing it with your tribe beside you.
And then we can take on those fears. And as you and I talk, it's something I've been dealing with for a few years now. I don't know, maybe 4 to 5 years. I've known that I'm at a place in my professional visibility that if I get a lot bigger, if I get on a Tim Ferriss podcast, a Sam Harris podcast, if I get a lot more visibility, I'm also moving into that sphere of being more open to attack and being more open to being canceled and more open to, people that don't like I work to empower men. And there's people out there that think any empowerment of men has got to be evil. Men have had all the power. We got to take power away from them. And so I realize I'm on the cusp of and maybe I'm already past that, where I'm out there because, interviews I do, I'm frequently mentioned in the same sentence with David Data, Jordan Peterson, Robert Bly, Mark Manson, people like that are, in many parts of the world, household names. I'm moving into that kind of company, and that's not ego. It's just facing the reality of I've had to sit down and say, can I handle it? Can I handle if someone comes after me on social media? Can I handle it if the New York Times or NPR or Washington Post write an attack piece like I've seen done against Jordan Peterson and others? Can I handle it if I get canceled? Can I handle it if somebody, decides to try to get my books off of Amazon because they're misogynistic or whatever? I've had to ask myself, and I didn't know why I did it at the time, but I don't know if people can see. I got this tattoo over 20 years ago. It's a crucifix, and I'm not even religious, and I wasn't even sure why I got it at the time, other than I thought it looked cool. And I realize now, if you live a big life, if you live your biggest life, if you live your purpose, you're going to get nailed to a few crosses, and it happens to the best of them. Whether it's Jesus, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, if you stand up and you do something big, they're going to come after you.
Yeah.
So the
And
question
would you
is,
want, yeah, and
can I
would you
handle
want
it?
it 100%? And would you want it any other way? You know, what's burned into the heart of every single man from a young boy is to live a life as a hero, to be a superhero. We look up to all those heroes out there. And there's not a greater metaphor of someone that truly walked the walk, talked the talk, you know, than JC. He literally got nailed to a cross for what his beliefs were. And,
Yeah.
you know, being able to
For
die.
teaching people to love. He got
Right.
nailed to a cross for saying God is love, you are love, love your neighbor as yourself.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we can't handle that. We got
Right.
nailed to a cross.
Yeah.
So teaching people to love will get you nailed to a cross.
Truth. But there's probably not a more noble way to go down as a man, if you think about the legacy you're leaving behind, than to truly take your message, your purpose, your passion, the things that you are deeply, that have been deep pains for you, and put them out on the platform and share with other people. You know, the greatest lesson I think from the time in working with you and from reading your book is that you took your suffering and you turned it into a superpower. You took your misery of the nice guy syndrome, the feedback from women, the not getting your needs met, and you turned it into your ministry. And from that, it's like there's going to be people that are going to throw some stones, but at the end of the day, it's helped and served a whole lot of people. It's had a massive impact on so many men's lives, where we get to, I've been able to use the curriculum and the book and now lead other generations of men, which is awesome, and make it my own and continue to pay it forward, which is just a beautiful thing. At the end of the day, that's how we're hardwired as men.
Yeah.
Like we're hardwired for that.
I hear you. I'm with you. Amen to that. A whole to that. And yeah, would we really want it any other way? And you know, I often say, because you know, I work with a lot of men that, you know, you know, I want a high quality woman. I want this in my life. I want that, but I'm so afraid. And I say, you know, really, if you do the work, you actually become so highly magnetic and attractive to all these things. And I've said the following comment I'm going to say, at times in front of women coaches, women that work with men and that are really kind of conscious of masculine and feminine energies and what turns women on and what they're drawn to or what attracts the feminine. And I've been saying for a long time that the feminine is highly attracted, magnetically attracted to a man who's comfortable in his own skin, knows where he's going, and looks like he's having a good time going there. And every time I say that, like, you know, on a call with women coaches, they all go, you hear the, they're opening. You know, the feminine's just going, yeah, that turns me on. A guy comfortable in his own skin, good posture, grounded, breathing, likes himself, doesn't need anybody's approval, knows where he's going, he's on purpose, got a plan, and he's smiling. He's having a fucking good time going the direction he was put on this earth to go. And that is so attractive to the feminine. And again, the feminine is women, dogs, cats, babies, money, opportunity, adventure. Everything that's not nailed down is going to be magnetically attracted to that man. And that's a practice in itself for us to open to it and say, okay, the cosmos wants to rain his goodies down on me. Who am I to say no? You know, like I may have shared this old friend of mine that used to say it's a sin to say no when you should have said yes. You know, so this empowered man says yes to all this good stuff. He's magnetically attracted. But again, it takes the work that you're teaching men, I've been teaching men of to being conscious, self-soothing, being grounded, being integrated, having a tribe, being initiated, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, leaning into fear. And all of a sudden, life just transforms into this place that you go, wow, what planet have I landed on?
This is my life.
I've said that.
Yeah.
You know, since my late 40s, I've said that many times. I can't believe the planet I'm living on, because it's not the same planet I spent most of the first half of my life on. And it's just, it's abundant. It's beautiful. It's a blessing. And but that comes from doing this work. And that's why I love men like you. When I started my work 30 years ago, there was basically Robert Bly, Iron John, the mythopoetic movement. I went out in the woods and beat a drum and said ho. There weren't a lot of resources. I guess Mankind Project did exist. Sterling existed, but there wasn't really the internet visibility. Nowadays, oh man, there's so many great men's coaches out there and men's programs and books for men. And it just excites me that, you know, a man doesn't have to look very far now to actually find really, really good information and good help.
I
So
love that.
that thrills me.
Yeah, same. And I want to respect your time, Dr. Glover. And I want to have one last question I want you to riff on before we wrap up this interview. But just, for all the listeners that have followed this journey, describing the nice guy, the symptoms of the nice guy, that sickness that was taught to us.
I just took that relaxing breath, by the way.
I noticed that. But look what happens on the other end of doing the therapy, doing the work, doing the deep dive, surrounding yourself with healthy tribe of men that will support you, provide you healthy conflict and confrontation and community and support. Look at the energy, enthusiasm that you get to show up on this call, and to be able to have the impact for this book was written 20 plus years ago, simply because you got on purpose. You took your pain and you turned it into purpose. And that is in the heart of every single man. And so if there has ever been a call to action for the listeners, for anybody that's on the fence that might have some nice guy symptoms or syndrome, do the work. Dive deep, read the books, get into the coaching, get into the programs, reach out, raise your hand, ask for help, because the process, the life on the other side is so vibrant. It is so full of life. You get to live your best life. You get to have your great cake and eat it too. And you get to enjoy it with a beautiful woman. You get to enjoy it with people that look up and admire to you. You get to do it with work that's purposeful. It fills you with passion and excitement. And there's no better way to live a life than that.
Oh, was that a question?
No, that was a statement.
It was perfect.
Yeah. So
whatever it was.
Yeah. Here's my last question for you. This I ask all my guests is finish this statement for me. A man of value is
valuable.
There you go.
He's making the world a different place because just the way he got up and walked the planet each day of his life.
Love it. Love it. Dr. Glover, thank you, sir.
Aaron, thank you.
Yeah, this has been an absolute pleasure. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, do us both a favor. Please head on over to drglover.com. That is where the majority of his resources are. Check out his book, No More Mr. Nice Guy and Dating Essentials for Men, on Amazon. After you order both those books, give him a 5-star review and rating. Please do that, and share this episode with a man that needs to hear it, and help us push this message forward. Appreciate you guys listening. Much love, many blessings, and boom.